Which celebrity got cancelled and you genuinely felt bad for them? Amanda Bynes and all the child stars break my heart. They were so young when they came to stardom, not at all of their own accord, and just basically were cash cows. I'm never surprised when they are grown and exhibit unstable symptoms or disorderly conduct, because what else do they know? There should be a watchdog agency for abuse and or unhealthy environment for mental development for young actors and actresses in Hollywood and keep managers, agents, producers and directors accountable. Every year we hear about these horrible things happening to these people and nothing seems to be done to prevent it and protect them before it's too late. Howard Dean. He yelled in excitement at one of his political rallies in 2004. People thought he wasn't fit to be president because of it. I think about this often. An excited whoop made you unfit and too unstable for the presidency in 2004. The world has progressed in a really bizarre way since then. An excited whoop specifically when he was up on stage at a campaign rally in front of a crowd cheering the hell out of him. It just happened to be picked up on a close range mic, which made it sound weirdly loud in the recording, but that's just the nature of the audio equipment. I truly believe that excited whoop is no less than any one of us would let rip if we found ourselves in front of a crowd that size, all waving signs with our name and cheering to our success. Ashley Judd. Harvey Weinstein blacklisted her for years. She's an incredible actress imo. Myra Sorvino, 2. She went from one of the most in-demand actresses after winning her Oscar to being completely blacklisted because Weinstein was telling anyone who'd listen that she was a diva and impossible to work with. When Peter Jackson was still making Lotta through Miramax, Weinstein told him not to hire Judd or Sorvino, and Jackson believed him. Even when the movies eventually moved to New Line Cinema, he still believed what Weinstein had told him, and wouldn't work with them. When Me Too started snowballing, Jackson remembered what Weinstein had told him about the two and apologized to them for it. Suicide warning. Hana Kimura. She was an Indonesian Japanese wrestler who often played the heel, and she wanted to be an actress. When she was offered a chance to be in the reality show Terrace House, she jumped at it. As we all know, reality shows are scripted. In a scene, Hana, remember, a professional wrestler on a reality show, removed another contestant's hat and scolded him. Her Twitter and Instagram accounts were overrun with awful comments, racist criticisms, and death threats for weeks, but over time it tapered off. Part of a reality show producer's job is to know how the audience thinks of all of the stars. The company monitors media coverage and social media trends. They knew. But right after quarantine started in Japan, they re-aired the episode. Hana lived alone. When the abuse began again, it must have seemed endless. She apologized on social media, took her kitten to the Stardom wrestling office, and went home to kill herself. She was 22. One edit. I hadn't watched the video since her death in May. Thank you to everyone who reminded me of the facts. Never heard of this, so I looked it up on YouTube. Seriously. She pulled the guy's hat off while yelling on a freaking reality show and the fans bullied her into suicide. My GF watched Real Housewives and that wouldn't even be a notable scene. It's reality TV, do we not all know it's fake? People really suck. People would bully Lena Headey for the shit her character did in Game of Thrones. People are stupid, illogical, emotional animals. They bullied the actors who played Monty and Bryce from 13 Reasons Why so much that the other cast members had to post regularly that everyone should remember that they're all just playing a part. I guess people have a hard time separating fiction from reality. It's insane, really. Hana was such a talented performer. Her matches in Stardom were brilliant and there are so many more I wish she could have had. I'd imagine if this hadn't happened she'd be competing in the EWA tournament at the moment. I was watching Terrace House at the time. I remember watching everything unfold on social media and my stomach dropped when the news came out that she was gone. It was also really awful timing in terms of the pandemic shutdown happening, which meant she was by herself more. It really showed how people have to be careful about criticism because it can be too much when it comes in large droves like that. Not only that, but some people took it too far, indirectly saying some really awful things to her on social media. Edit, death threats, telling her to disappear, among other triggering comments. It's tragic because she clearly had a lot going for her, and it makes me feel awful for even watching the show. Edit, I have some people misunderstanding. I am not saying criticism and the threats she received are the same thing. I am saying she received both, and that neither helped. Of course threats are not the same thing as criticism. That is not what I meant at all. Winona Ryder, that feels like one of the first big cancels of the internet age. Glad she was able to rebound with Stranger Things. I love how tame stealing sounds when people are getting accused of rape left and right. This is a good one, glad she's uncancelled. I was just talking to someone about how insane it was that she got cancelled for being caught stealing. Yes, it's a crime, and she should have received some kind of disciplinary action, but I think she was in a dark place mentally. I also feel like as far as crime or bad behavior goes, it wasn't like she was smashing hotel rooms or assaulting people or anything like that. I just always felt like they saw a mentally ill and fragile woman in Hollywood and wanted us all to think it was vile for some reason. Not to go all pop psych here, but I think the public perceived that it was a mental health issue, since she was so rich and didn't need to steal, and that's precisely why she was ostracized. We're not great now, but society back in the 90s was much worse about dealing with any kind of mental health problems. Kind of a unique case because studios thought she was cancelled forever when perhaps she wasn't, but Laura Dern. When Laura Dern played Ellen's girlfriend on the episode where she came out, she was blacklisted by the industry for nearly a decade. And some people would harass her to the point she needed protection in public. She says her manager warned her she wouldn't get roles if she agreed to take the part on Ellen, but did so anyways. She went from Jurassic Park and being in demand to nobody giving her a call. Obviously she's recovered, but we lost a decade of great Laura Dern performances because of studios' perception that she was cancelled by public opinion for playing a gay role. I remember in the making of Jurassic Park book that came out about the same time as the movie, there's a segment in there where Laura Dern says she's retiring from acting after that movie. I never understood why, and years later we know it's not what actually happened, but this comment fills in some gaps for me. Thank you. I had no idea. Always wondered why such a talented actress wasn't more visible throughout the years. Loved her in Big Little Lies. Laura Dern is a true ally. I'm sad this was the reaction in the 90s. She deserved better. I'm glad she's been able to make a comeback, though. Paul Reubens aka Pee Wee Herman. He had a reputation of being kind of a stuck-up asshole when the Pee Wee character shot to fame, but not really any better or worse than other famous folks. He got cancelled because he was arrested for public indecency. He was caught masturbating in an adult theater. Aside from the undercover cop who caught him, he was alone, and it was a normal adult pornography film. But the industry and media acted like he'd been caught with child porn or had raped someone. He's made a bit of a comeback recently though. I think people finally realized that in the grand scheme of sex crimes, jerking it by yourself in a porn theater is nothing at all. I saw his Pee Wee revival on Broadway several years ago and enjoyed it, and I've seen him on a lot of the celebrity game shows on TV recently. Paul Reubens was great in Reno 911. Small part but fantastic. Also, I've never been to an adult movie theater, but if I did go, then I'd expect to see a lot of people with their dicks out. That one was always weird as shit, too, because Pee Wee Herman was originally intended to be a perverted parody of a kids show. Like if you look up the original HBO special from the stage show, it's full of adult humor. If they'd kept it like that, no one would have given a shit. But because they took it out of satire and made it an actual kids show, it was a scandal. Chris Brown. Just kidding, he wasn't cancelled, but I wish he was. A verbal argument ensued and Brown pulled the vehicle over on an unknown street, reached over Robin F with his right hand, opened the car door and attempted to force her out. Brown was unable to force Robin F out of the vehicle because she was wearing a seatbelt. When he could not force her to exit, he took his right hand and shoved her head against the passenger window of the vehicle, causing an approximate 1-inch raised circular contusion. Robin F turned to face Brown and he punched her in the left eye with his right hand. He then drove away in the vehicle and continued to punch her in the face with his right hand while steering the vehicle with his left hand. The assault caused Robin F's mouth to fill with blood and blood to splatter all over her clothing and the interior of the vehicle. Brown looked at Robin F and stated, "I'm going to beat the out of you when we get home. You wait and see." The detective said Robin F then used her cell phone to call her personal assistant Jennifer Rosales, who did not answer. Robin F pretended to talk to her and stated, "I'm on my way home. Make sure the police are there when I get there." After Robin F faked the call, Brown looked at her and stated, "You just did the stupidest thing ever. Now I'm really going to kill you." Brown resumed punching Robin F and she interlocked her fingers behind her head and brought her elbows forward to protect her face. She then bent over at the waist, placing her elbows and face near her lap in an attempt to protect her face and head from the barrage of punches being levied upon her by Brown. Brown continued to punch Robin F on her left arm and hand, causing her to suffer a contusion on her left triceps. Sick. That was approximately 2 inches in diameter and numerous contusions on her left hand. Robin F then attempted to send a text message to her other personal assistant, Melissa Ford. Brown snatched the cellular telephone out of her hand and threw it out of the window onto an unknown street. Brown continued driving and Robin F observed his cellular telephone sitting in his lap. She picked up the cellular telephone with her left hand and before she could make a call he placed her in a headlock with his right hand and continued to drive the vehicle with his left hand. Brown pulled Robin F close to him and bit her on her left ear. She was able to feel the vehicle swerving from right to left as Brown sped away. He stopped the vehicle in front of 333 North June Street and Robin F turned off the car, removed the key from the ignition and sat on it. Brown did not know what she did with the key and began punching her in the face and arms. He then placed her in a headlock, positioning the front of her throat between his bicep and forearm. Brown began applying pressure to Robin F's left and right carotid arteries, causing her to be unable to breathe and she began to lose consciousness. She reached up with her left hand and began attempting to gouge his eyes in an attempt to free herself. Brown bit her left ring and middle fingers and then released her. While Brown continued to punch her, she turned around and placed her back against the passenger door. She brought her knees to her chest, placed her feet against Brown's body and began pushing him away. Brown continued to punch her on the legs and feet, causing several contusions. Robin F began screaming for help and Brown exited the vehicle and walked away. A resident in the neighborhood heard Robin F's plea for help and called 911, causing a police response. An investigation was conducted and Robin F was issued a domestic violence emergency protective order. She isn't full on cancelled, but what Keisha went through was so messed up. Not only was she abused, but her abuser was part of the record label and she wasn't able to leave her contract. Came here to say exactly this. I didn't particularly care for her material, but the minute she steps up to get away from abusers, the whole world just wrote her off. I didn't care for Keisha's old material much, if at all, but the album she made right after she was able to record again is fantastic. Emo. She posted a selfie with no makeup and I instantly felt so bad. The amount of makeup she's had to wear to cover up all those freckles. Her record label created this persona for her and completely ruined her reputation because they thought her being super sexualized alcoholic party girl was more marketable than the fact that she is talented as fuck. Britney Spears when she shaved her head and all that. I'm no fan of hers, but she just seemed like someone who cracked under all the pressure and lost her shit. Craig Ferguson did an absolutely amazing job talking about that and relating it to his own life. Major respect to him for that. Kind of long but worth watching. She never truly got to live as a person. She was targeted by her parents as product from the moment she shared a thread of talent. Yep, she was their cash cow. They struggled a lot and were poor, and spent every last bit they had on classes and such to turn her into a star. The least they could do is give her control of the money she made for them. It's not like she would leave them with nothing. They'd be very well off, but they want it all, not just some. The thing that upsets me the most about this was that Britney went into the hairdressers to get it all shaved off and they refused to do it for her, so she took the clippers and did it herself. I can't help but think if the hairdresser did it, there wouldn't be the pap pictures of her shaving it off and looking upset af. This just helped them portray her as crazy. I think the hairdresser was afraid of being sued or held accountable in some way because she is such a big star. They were just covering their ass and probably in shock at the situation as well. But you're right, it's just adding to the unstable image. Ask anyone who's had long hair and got it shaved off, or even just wanted a shortcut, how much pushback a hairdresser gave and how many times to assert that they definitely want it and won't regret it and yell at the hairdresser afterwards. You'd be hard pressed to find one who would do that to Britney Spears' hair. Of course that's part of what drove her to do it presumably. It was a very symbolic act of taking control, though it led to her losing a whole lot more in material terms. She's been fighting her father's guardianship over her for essentially her whole adult life. Her money has never been here to control. Her entire public life hasn't really been her choice. Not that she's the most stable person in the world, but her outburst, as a way of harming her father's hold over her, made a lot of sense. She's been a legal prisoner for a long time. Although apparently that might be changing. She shaved her head because she didn't want people touching or fussing over her anymore. It was just another thing people had to come into work on and make her look pretty. If anything, what she did was an absolutely sane thing to do. Breaks my heart. Not completely gone, but Terry Crews has issues getting work because he spoke out about being sexually assaulted during the Me Too movement. People assumed a man his stature couldn't be assaulted and he gave names and people weren't very happy. Wendy Williams mocked him on her show when he spoke up about it. She is a vile human. Sinead O'Connor, the Dixie Chicks, and Corey Feldman. I've always wondered where Sinead O'Connor went. She just seemed to fall off the map one day. What happened? I think she ripped up a photo of the Pope on stage and yelled something like "Fight the enemy." Yeah, people always say it's because she spoke out against the pedophilia in priesthood, but I think a lot of people were mostly just confused by that incident. She was a musical guest on SNL and tore up a picture of the Pope without being able to give much context in the moment, which came off as pretty awful to a lot of people. Corey truly breaks my heart. I had the chance to get to know him when I was a kid in 2000. He was pretty normal then. Because of what the industry did to him, he always made sure that I was being taken care of on set and that I was protected from the same monstrosities. I think I'm dying really fucked him up again. I will always be so grateful of how he looked out for me and I hope he gets the help he needs. Megan Fox deserved better than the way media constantly sexualized her and ignored anything she had to say. She has numerous interviews trying to talk about being uncomfortably sexualized by Michael Bay when she was a teenager, but the audience and interviewer would just cheer as if she wasn't talking about predatory behavior. Megan Fox is so smart and eloquent, not the bimbo Hollywood would have you believe. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.